Toxic masculinity is one of the most overused, misapplied phrases in modern culture. And here's the truth no one wants to say. It's not masculinity that's toxic. It's people. But instead of calling out toxic behavior, on both sides, we slap the word masculinity onto every uncomfortable male trait and pretend like we're solving something. You know what that does? It doesn't reform men. It confuses them, it shames them, and it teaches an entire generation of boys that being strong, assertive, or emotionally reserved is something to be ashamed of. Let's break this down. Masculinity, real masculinity, isn't about dominance or oppression. It's about responsibility, about sacrifice, leadership, structure, and protection. In ancient tribes, it was the men who fought lions and went to war. In modern times, it's men who build skyscrapers, lay bricks, run into burning buildings. You think those traits come from softness? From emotional sensitivity? No, it doesn't. They come from discipline, restraint, stoicism, focus. Traits we now mock because they don't fit into our therapeutic, feel everything culture. Here's the thing. Some of the traits labeled as toxic masculinity are simply unrefined masculinity, strength without wisdom, dominance without purpose. That doesn't make masculinity toxic. It means it needs mentorship, guidance, structure. Now, don't get me wrong. Some men out here are abusive, manipulative, dangerous. But that's not masculinity. That's trauma in a masculine shell. You wouldn't call a fire toxic just because it can burn. You'd call it dangerous when it's uncontrolled. Masculinity is the same. What's worse is that nobody wants to talk about toxic femininity. Yeah, I said it. Emotional manipulation, passive aggression, weaponized victimhood, social sabotage. Why don't those things get their own label? Because the narrative only runs one way. Blame the man, praise the woman. But you can't have a balanced society if you're only willing to hold one gender accountable. Masculinity isn't the enemy. A lack of mature masculinity is. And part of the reason we're lacking it is because we've stripped boys of male role models, demonized fatherhood, and forced them to process emotions in ways that don't align with their biology. Boys aren't broken girls. They regulate differently, express differently, lead differently. And when you try to rewire that into something soft, passive, and agreeable, you don't get well-adjusted men. You get confused, repressed, directionless ones. And society pays the price. Fewer fathers, more depression, rising addiction, more men opting out of relationships, marriage, leadership, and responsibility. And let me be clear, this isn't about making excuses for bad behavior. Men who abuse, manipulate, or dominate out of insecurity, that's not masculinity, that's immaturity. And the solution isn't to shame all men, it's to raise better ones. The kind who know when to lead, when to listen, when to speak truth, and when to protect what matters. But that won't happen if we keep telling them their nature is the problem. So here's my message. Stop pathologizing masculinity. Stop creating labels for traits you don't understand. Start raising strong men, not soft shells who perform what's acceptable. And let's finally admit it. The problem isn't masculinity. The problem is unchecked immaturity. On both sides, call out the behavior, not the biology. If you're tired of the toxic masculinity label being thrown around without context, drop a comment and tell me what you think real masculinity actually looks like. Have you ever been called toxic just for setting boundaries, or seen someone get away with toxic behavior because they weren't male? Let's talk about it. And if you want more raw, honest takes like this, especially the stuff no one else is willing to say, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Next video, we're talking about something deeper. The gender war might not be organic. It might be by design. Don't miss that one.